Let's see.
So now, tell
See,
us
it's
about
back
the
at 0.
upcoming
You see,
eclipse.
it's back to 0.
Yeah.
All right. But everybody say me. We'll just won't be so much. That might be more like a sort of a conversation.
Right.
All right.
Okay. This will give you editing practice.
Yes, it'll give me editing practice. Not a problem. Okay.
So,
what can I do for you?
Everyone's talking about the eclipse coming up.
Yep. Well, they're talking that it's coming up, but no one talks about what it means. And the eclipse actually means something. Well, why does it mean something? Because, see, according to Kabbalah, a Jewish mysticism, that creation didn't come out of a big bang, but rather creation was engraved. So it means that everything that's going to happen in creation was already engraved from the beginning. It doesn't mean that we don't have freedom of choice, because we might have been we're part of that engraving, that we're going to be here. Because then there's freedom of choice, so our parents had freedom of choice whether we're going to be here or not. We have freedom of choice what we're going to do here, right? So, but the eclipse had no freedom of choice. And when you think about it, that the eclipse, what's an eclipse? That the moon gets in front of the sun, and it exactly covers the sun. I mean, that's extraordinary, because if it was a little further away from us, it would be too small to cover the sun. And if it was just a little closer to us, it would blot out the whole sun. It exactly fits over the exact perimeter of the sun is the exact perimeter of the moon. So this is extraordinary in itself. And that every eclipse was already engraved into creation to come at that time. And since our time is such an extraordinary time, that's why the eclipse is particularly extraordinary. And one of the things that makes it so extraordinary is the year. You see, I mean, we call it the Hebrew calendar, but it's not really a Hebrew calendar. It's far before Hebrew. It's really the human calendar, because it goes from the first human being. And people think the first human being was like, some sort of joke or something, because of all the scientific theories. But Torah theory actually fits into these, but in a different way, a very interesting way. See? And that according to Torah, that the first person was androgynous, made by the Creator out of clay, just a gross human being, androgynous gross human being. And the Creator took the light image of that human being and brought it to the Garden of Eden, which is just beyond the Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt is where Pluto is in the Kuiper Belt. It's like the furthest planet. So it's way there. And he was gone for 130 years. And when he comes back, the crude human being who had been made, that he was made from, had become the Neanderthal. And all these different dudes, see? And one thing when we're taught, that's like millions of years, but you have to understand that time is not linear. Time is actually a spiral. So, like for us to go around a spiral of time is a very short amount of time. But back then it was a very long time, so many things could happen within that. And by the time the human being came back, this light human being who was now clothed in skin, comes back. And at the same time, one of the things that we do see in archaeology is that when the modern human being arose, the Neanderthal disappeared. So, and there's another thing, people, I'm not getting off the subject, but people ask about dinosaurs. So it says also in the beginning, the human being was 120 feet tall. That was the first human being. And the angels complained that there was too much shit for the earth to have a human being, 120. It was just too much. So God made it to be 6 feet tall. And one would assume that since the whole creation is about the human being, because we have freedom of choice, so therefore, if the human being was made 120 feet tall, or many times smaller than so were all the animals. And when the human being was made small, everything was made small. And it could appear again to have happened, millions of years, but that's according to our look at time. We're looking at time in a linear way. So anyways, that's the beginning of the calendar. So it begins with this first human being, and now, and the calendar is a 6,000 year calendar, because that's the idea of each day of creation. It's not that there's nothing before that. There was everything before that. But this is putting everything in its place for the creation of the human being on the sixth day of creation. And each day corresponds to 1,000 years. And so now we're in the sixth day of creation, when the human being was born, when the human being was made. And at the end of the sixth day comes the seventh day, which is the day of rest. And one thing it says in the Talmud, all sevens are beloved. And we're going, this year is 5,777. So and this is like towards the end of the 6,000 year Hebrew calendar, human calendar, which the whole point of it, these are male years. And we're going into the 1,000 years of woman and the 1,000 years of peace. And that's why this eclipse, particularly going across just America, and America is really Rome, and you really see it in our time as we get very close to the eclipse, and we see what has happened, in America, being the bastion of Rome. We're going around trying to dictate to everyone what they have to do, and it's just not going to work because Rome is over. It really ended in 2000. Mars came closest to the Earth in 2003. And since then has been waning, and that's when they were the strongest. They started all these wars, but it's all coming to the end. I read a whole book about it, Meditations in Time, which explains like how we got to where we are. But the main thing is where we are. That this is a juncture between male and female energies, and it's really a time of shift. And it's not so much that, we're going to wake up and be different the next day, but the acknowledgement that the old paradigm is no longer working, and it's time to embrace the new paradigm, and that we were given from the time of creation that this conjunction would happen at this time in this country. So this is very profound.
It's a good time to be alive.
Yes, actually, it says in the Talmud you wouldn't want to live now, but if you did, it would be interesting. But really, the hardest, the worst is over. We're really over the hump. I think between 1998 and 2005 were the hardest years. And now we're, ever since Katrina, and Katrina really shifted everything. It had to be, a terrible, calamity. The eclipse doesn't have to be a calamity. On the contrary, it just has to be to awaken people's eyes, to waken people up, that, we've really been living in a lie. Mm-hmm. We've really been living in a lie, and we need to, to really value what is true. Because we see that, people live in a lie because, it works. But the lie's not working anymore. And so we have to know that, look for some way of understanding what has gone on over the last 6,000 years, what was going on with Rome, and make some sense out of it, and then we'll all be able together to really fix this thing.
What are the solutions? How do we fix it?
Well, I think that there are practical solutions. And one of the things, me in particular, because I think a lot of the lies have been really perpetrated by religion. So one of the ways we could really correct things in a very simple way is to see to it that religion starts paying for their property taxes, and that would certainly help to shift the monies to where they need to be, and if these people have to foreclose, then, the poor people should live there. I mean, religion is just one of the terrible lies that have been perpetrated on the people. I mean, the government is at least trying to do something good. Many of the people in government, they're there to help to serve the people. But, religion is just selling God. I mean, selling heaven. Everyone goes to heaven. You don't have to pay for it. So, I mean, there are many things in the world that are just lies. A lot of this, like, Big Bang Theory, outer space. I mean, what are we doing in outer space? I mean, as long as there's one person in this world suffering, we shouldn't be in outer space, right? We should be in inner space. We should be taking care of it. And they're talking about how the planet will be uninhabitable after 100 years. That is absurd. We should go out and find another planet. I mean, it's just an absurdity. Maybe we try fixing this one. I mean, So these are things and to have the eclipse happening in America, and America is the real superpower. Is Rome is at his highest, and this is a sign that it's just over. It's just over. It's happening at this year, at this time, when all these things are going on. It seems like just a clear message to the world that the 2,000 years of Rome are over, and we're approaching the 1,000 years of woman. And besides the kind of practical things, there's attitudes that have to change, and certainly our attitude towards women. And that's one of the big things. And also women towards themselves, that they're not supposed to be competing with men. That women have their, in the Talmud it says they're actually a different type of species. So we can't expect that women would have to live in a man's world. It has been for 6,000 years. And now things are changing, that women have the right to be women. That's one of the things that happened in the 60s. And people don't really realize it. But women had to always cover up. It was kind of like, Saudi Arabia or something, and then suddenly in the 60s, women were allowed to be beautiful, and men had to respect them for being beautiful, But then, time went on, and then men lost respect for women, and that's really where we're at now, and that certainly has to change. And one of the things that's happening is also a birth of a new type of human being. And it requires not only being nice to women, but being nice to the earth, which is also woman. To showing respect for women. Because the whole idea of the 6,000 years was to make man. And if man in the end is some disrespectful asshole, then that's who we are. So now is our chance to stand up and to say, no, we are men. And we understand that the right thing that men do, we've always done from primitive man, that we take care of our women. Because women are the most important part of the tribe. Because they give birth. You only need one man for a lot of women. But one woman can only give birth once, at the most once a year. Maybe have twins sometimes, but, I mean, it's like women are very valuable. And children are valuable. Men are expendable. And so in our situation where we're like asexual and we're competing against one another, so it not only devalues woman, but also devalues man. Because man is not able to do what is natural to man, which is to care for women and respect for women. So these are kind of like major things that have to change, but some of them are attitude and some of them are practical. I'm sure people have better practical ideas than me, I'm not too much practical person, but I'd like to see certain things change. But the whole thing is going to change. The calendar is immutable, right? It's just immutable. This is the way it is, and God set it out 6 days, man. 6,000 years. We're only 223 years until the end of the calendar, which means that's the amount of time we have, basically 10 generations to make this change in man and to make the world a good place so we can go into the 1,000 years of woman proud, and then man can merge with woman, and then everyone's happy. The general rule is you make women happy, men are happy.
So it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that what women might need to work on at this time is receiving and just accepting of help and support.
Well, it's a good point because sometimes I talk about this stuff. I always get from women. I don't blame them for saying this. We can take care of ourselves, and I understand that, and women can take care of themselves, no question. Yeah. And certainly the women who want to take care of themselves, have that right. But the women who don't want to take care of themselves and who want to be cared by not a particular man, just by men in general. Mm-hmm. You see women on the street. They shouldn't be on the street. I mean, they shouldn't. I mean, women are like homeless. Mm-hmm. I mean, the men in our society should say, we won't stand for this. They're not going to be homeless women. Mm-hmm. Homeless men we can deal with. Homeless women, that shows very badly on men. And that men should be in homes and women shouldn't be in homes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's something really wrong with our society. That shows like just a basic disrespect for women. Mm-hmm. And if those kind of things change, it will like reverberate throughout society, and then in many ways people will start caring for women. Mm-hmm. See, in Jewish law, interesting thing, in Jewish law, women are not commanded to get married and have children. Only men are commanded. So women do it out of love. That's the only reason, for a woman to want to marry a man is out of love. And so the woman has a right of saying, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm a professional, I got my own trip going, and that's mine, and that's hers. But if she wants, she can say, you want to marry me, you take care of me. And the man has to do that. And the only catch is that if she makes something, let's say she's a nice painter or something, she makes a nice painting, so the man can take and sell it. Because I'm paying, I'm supporting you, so if you make something, that's kind of the deal in the marriage. But really the marriage is really only about sex. I mean, when you get married, the sex is better. That's, everything else stays the same. The woman has a right to keep everything she has, only if she wants to say, hey, you take care of me. And then the man, that's the right thing for the man to do. So we see like the ancient law, to me, it's a much more balanced and logical way to do things. Because now people are getting married for convenience or for show, or, and even people who get married for love, I mean, gee, love changes. And then at the end, there's this big fight over who owns what. And it doesn't really have to be like that, I mean, just many, I think if we look back to the ancient times, I mean, we see much more logic. They understood who the human being is in a much better way, in a much sounder way, I think. And in our time, I think it's just, people are really confused about the sexes in general, and everyone has this attitude, well, we're all just one, and we're one human being, but we're male and female is a big distinction. And particularly we see it with God in creation, that male and female are always equal, like sun and moon. I mean, everything is equal. It's one of the things about the moon being exactly the same size as the sun. That's what it says. God created two equal orbs. And they are equal from the earth. They're equal. So we think about how extraordinary it is that this could happen, this eclipse could happen, and that would happen on a planet, the only planet we know of in the whole universe that has life on it. I mean, those two coincidences, if you want to say they're coincidences, are beyond coincidence. And this is actually obviously something which has been set into motion 5,777 years ago. And with a plan, there would be 6,000 years of man, and then the final 1,000 years of woman. Before, as one soul, we leave this planet and go to another planet, as we are on our journey of enlivening our entire solar system, which eventually will happen. And consciousness, not just of the human being, but of all things, like, of the plants and the animals, the stones, all things will have consciousness. And we're in this process. So to look at the eclipse and just say, it's just an eclipse, an amazing thing. It's so much more than eclipse. And that's what really the dialogue should be about.
Mm-hmm. Evolution.
Yes, evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, here's the thing with evolution. They teach us that we've evolved out of animals. I heard this story once. So this guy's on the plane with another guy, and they both have kids. One kid is misbehaving, and the other kid's being very. So the guy says, the other guy says, I don't get it. Why, why is my kid misbehaving, yours is not? So he says, well, what do you teach him? You teach him, you teach him, you order him to school. What do you teach him in school? It teaches him that he came out of an ape. So, why not be an ape? That's really who he is. And I teach my kid different. I teach my child that no, the human being is the highest thing in creation. And in the beginning, he was very spiritual. And now we're on a much lower level. And now we're very physical. And so when he looks back to who is he in his essence, he sees a spiritual human being. And someone who's mature, even at a young age. So these theories really hurt society. Which is bad for people, but it's good for the people running society. The rich people who want to get what they want. It's good to have people thinking that they're a bunch of apes. And here's the TV, go watch the TV, you'll be an educated ape. And that's generally how people are kind of treated, and so, and these ideas, and it's one of the problems with religion, is that they're putting out ideas which aren't true. And the true idea is that they're not really engaging people in because, they feel like, they want to go along with the system. Everyone's just into the system, into the money. But the Creator's not. And the Creator is going forward with his 6,000-year calendar and with the eclipse and with this change that's going to happen in the world. The more of us that know that it's happening and it's going to happen, that the easier it is to wake ourselves up and wake other people up. And then they'll just be like what they call it, a sea change or something like that, like just a complete change in the world. And this is what it prophesies, that this change will come beharifying in the blink of an eye. And now we see that it can happen. And that's what the eclipse is. The eclipse is a blink of the eye. For this moment, we close the eyes and open the eyes, and it's really a different world. Not sort of in substance, but just in our attitude. And this will change everything. There's no politics that can change this stuff. There's no bomb that can change it. You can't eat rat. Truth is what, it brings light, and then everyone's cool with that.
Ending point.
All right.